Right, so I seen this story and I thought I just had to make a video because I made a video, I think it was about 4 or 5 days ago, about stuff like this, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. And like I say, in Canada too, most people are still brainwashed into believing that diversity is the greatest thing ever and what could ever go wrong. So we really need to spread stories like this around to kind of question the narrative. And that's kind of the biggest thing lacking with people nowadays when it comes to politics and everything, is that questioning the narrative. Like all human progress has always came from questioning the narrative and questioning, can we do better? Slavery, the wheel, even, like, rather than combines, trucks, all this kind of, or cars, questioning that, hey, like, rather than making horses or people do manual labor, why don't we just create machines that can do it for us? And like when it comes to this kind of stuff too, is that questioning is, is diversity really our strength? Or are cultures actually all the same and equal? And I don't think that anyone could actually argue that they are, because their argument is basically just blindly saying it. Like, you have a lot of these society, I mean, the idea of Sharia law is, archaic. And you have all these, feminists, and not even a lot of people who don't even identify as feminists, that think that, oh, there's a patriarchy in the West, and yet they support something that's exactly what, even worse than what they think exists in the West, or even existed in like the 1950s or 1940s. It's way worse. Like, women had it, way better back then. They didn't have it nearly as bad as what the feminists and the people would have you think back then. But, in most of these Middle Eastern countries, in fact, in pretty much every one of them, women have no rights. You know, not only that, they can be, I don't even want to go over the stuff that goes on, but things are pretty bad. And most of Europe has done this kind of stuff. I think Canada, in my opinion, I think we're bordering on the tipping point, which is why I think the last election was so important, and why I think the next election will be so important. Because I think if the Liberals get in again, they're going to pump up immigration numbers even more, and it's not going to be good. And if they stay high enough, well, it's only a matter of time until, cultures that have, 4 or 5 kids per couple, compared to, whites and Asians and whatnot that have 1.5, kids a couple. I mean, all you got to do is understand math to know that's not going to work out very good in the long run. Now, the one caveat I always have to throw in when I talk about this kind of stuff, I understand all this kind of stuff is all averages. I know there's plenty of, nice, Muslims, blacks, all the minorities. I know there's some. But what I'm talking about here is averages. And like I say, I don't think all white people are, all great and hunky dory. I know plenty of white people that are socialists and feminists, and, every bit as crazy as a lot of people who believe in Islam or are Muslim. So, like I say, all I'm talking about is on average. I understand that there's exceptions to rules, and whenever you make these arguments, people always point that out a million times over. And in my mind, it's really just a confession, usually, that they're just projecting their own beliefs onto people, that, they judge people by averages. The fact that it has to be pointed out, like I say, I think it's generally people on the left. They project their own belief systems on other people, because, that's why they believe in a welfare state, because, if there wasn't anyone forcing them to help, pay for the poor, they wouldn't give a dime. The right is okay with reducing the welfare state on average, because if it was, if welfare was eliminated, well, they're fine giving money to charity to help people. So that's another story in and of itself. But the point being here, the point I really want to get across, is that for every one of you people that believes in diversity and how great it is, and how, it's great, how much of this kind of stuff has to go on before you question that? Like, seriously, how much has to go on before you question it? Is 19,000 kids being sexually abused, raped, used as treated like animals, basically, is that not enough for you to question the narrative? And for the love of God, let's not pretend that, because I know this is something they're going to bring up, that, people from the Middle East and Africa aren't overly represented in this. You look at Sweden; they were a country that rape was very rare, sexual abuse was very rare. Now they're, at least in the Western world, I think they might be the highest country as far as sexual abuse and rape goes. You can check the numbers on that, but I'm pretty sure they're one of the highest, if not the highest. And they went from, almost non-existent, high trust society, all this kind of stuff. Now, women are afraid to go out on the streets, and people are afraid, and it's just not working out. Like, and the point being is too is that how the one thing that you can always tell if people are actually sane when it comes to political debates is that they'll have to, I mean, sorry, everything has, trade-offs. Like, there has to be a point to where, you would say, well, you know what, I don't think that we can do this anymore. Or, on the opposite end. But the problem is when you talk with most of these people on the left, is they'll never ever give you, they'll never give you anything on it. They won't budge. You'll ask them, okay, well, what would it take for you to change your mind on it? They'll never give you a coherent answer. For me, well, that's very simple. If you can prove that, Middle Easterners and people from the third world, Africa and whatnot, culture's equal. They are on welfare equal to, Canadians, or, white Canadians, Asian Americans, white Americans, all this kind of stuff. Which is, they're on. I think they're almost twice as likely to be on welfare. So that means you're not going to prove that they commit a lot more crime. All this kind of stuff. And second, third generation, the numbers don't really change either. I know people like to make that argument, but it's also not true. So, like I say, for me, for someone like me who's against mass immigration, I believe we can have immigration, but on a very, very small scale, much smaller than what it is now. And the people that come in have to be contributing to society. They have to be a benefit to Canadian society or American society or wherever it is they're coming. None of this, well, I mean, none of this, people on welfare bringing their family members to get free healthcare, all this kind of stuff. We can't have that. But it would be nice, like I say, to always to people, I wish we could help the rest of the world, but we don't have the money. The Canadian, we're already spend I mean, the province of Alberta spends almost as much money on healthcare as they generate in taxes and oil revenue money. Like, the amount of money that the government of Alberta is currently using is almost as, I mean, I think the government of Alberta spends 22 or 23 trillion dollars on, or not trillion, billion dollars on healthcare. Like, that is a lot of money. Like, we're only spending 28 billion. I mean, I know a lot of it is being taken from us for equalization, which is complete BS, but that's another story in and of itself. But like I say, it would be amazing. Like, I wish we could help people, but we don't have the money. Like, one of the first things you learn in economics is, resources are finite. They're not, you can't just print more money. Like, that's like the typical leftist thing, is that, they think that resources are infinite, and that, no, you can just print more money, you can just go into more debt. And it's crazy to have that belief system, but that's what they believe. And the other thing about the left too is that they'll never really be honest with you about their crazy beliefs. They'll never tell you they support open borders, even though they support open borders. They'll never tell you they're, I mean, some people will, but they'll never tell you they're full on socialist when they're full on socialist. All this kind of stuff. They always like to water it down, and which is just more evidence that their beliefs are so messed up and wrong. Is that if your beliefs are actually rooted in morals, ethics, and fact, reality, all this kind of stuff, you shouldn't have to lie and manipulate people about your views. So, like I say, the take home point here I wanted to get across is that if 19,000 kids being sexually abused, raped, like I say, treated like animals, isn't enough for you to question, is diversity actually our strength? Then I don't know what is. Like, seriously, I don't know what is. So I'm gonna leave the video there. If you like the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.